will go swell when there's no music starting. You know it's Saturday anyway, it's okay. Because we're departing from our traditional opening, and I'm hoping you're ready to read some novels with me. That's right. We'll see. What happens to Ishmael? What happens to Ahab? What happens to that fellow with the tattoos and the sharp teeth? We'll have to see. We're starting the stream. We can't play our traditional opening songs because they all get copyright stricken. So we'll just have to hope that whatever I'm pitching doesn't sound too much like anything in the library of DMCA songs. So here's Minecraft opening. Like that was the plan all along. We're setting up the stream now. Opening up the YouTube stuff. Got a second chat, wow. Also Discord. And then that's enough. Welcome to that one guy. A girl named B and the Hermit server follower. Yippee. Okay. I gotta say, that's a really, I'm gonna ban that account. That's, yeah, you can't have your entire identity be like, so that's the thing, is I have to say your name out loud. And so, like, if somebody's username is something like iscalfan135, I can't say that without people thinking I'm talking to Iscal in chat. You putting your name as the Hermit server blah 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 makes it sound like I'm talking to the whole Hermit server if I talk to you. You're gonna have to get a different YouTube account. That's a bad idea. This is why the Chicago Cubs organization doesn't allow Cub fan in their ballparks. There's a lot of precedent for this. It's not just me going crazy like someone hunting a whale indefinitely named Ahab. No, I'm not getting into the role play early. No. Okay, so here we go. We're about to read chapter 17 of Moby Dick and do some chill grinding on Hermitcraft. Also, real quick, apparently my fiance was watching the snooker earlier, which I've heard of from the thick of it. Apparently it's like the cricket, but with a billiards table that they put extra stuff on. Kind of like a billiards pinball thing. No, not Bagatelle, like a different one. So, anyway. I realize I don't know what snooker players are called. Like, Minecraft players are called Minecrafters. Are snooker players called snookerers? I actually don't know. You know? Then again, I don't know what a lot of people are called. Like, are Balatro players called Balatradors? I don't know. There's a bullfighter card, so that makes sense on some level. Let's do some basic inventory management while we give everybody a chance to roll in and open up chapter 17 of Moby Dick. Which, you know what, you might want to link to. So let me pull up. Okay, that's Moby Dick Illustrated. I also need Moby Dick Project Gutenberg. Project Gutenberg. Project Gutenberg. To Omashu. Okay. So we're reading Moby Dick CH17. I'm going to post a link to this in each of the chats. And then Twitch is going to immediately throw an error, and I'm going to have to refresh it. Okay, we're going to pin that message. We're going to pin this message. Okay. Also, I need to go ahead and... We already got our first tip of the stream rolling in from Aaron S. Ferriera. Thank you, Aaron, for tipping 5. That's very kind of you. That's our first tip of the stream, getting us 15 away from our first face camera expansion milestone. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. Let's go ahead and post that for everybody else. I'm down here in slot 9. Am I? Wait. I've drifted. Okay. Why am I drifting? Yeah, I'm down here in slot 9. Putting the hot in the hot bar. Let me get that tipping link up there as well. Okay. So, yeah. Let's get some inventory management stuff done. Senator Void, I have no concept of the passage of time. I'm terrible. If somebody said, "Hey, can you have this done, or can you do this for 2 minutes straight?" I'd be like, I don't know, maybe. My brain doesn't, I wildly misestimate things. If you need to make a decision that you think is best for you, you make it without asking me a question about time. You're on your own, kid. I don't know. Lady Oolong says, caught up reading Moby Dick, having an achy day, so I'm gonna hang out and cocoon. Awesome. Have a good time. Yeah, it's really easy to just catch up on the reading. Now, I spent most of my day... I didn't have to catch up on reading the chapters I missed because I was here for all the chapters that I read. But I spent most of the day planning for my upcoming move. Toxic Glitter says, when is the competition tomorrow? I don't know. I have it written down in the other channel, but now I have to change channels in the Discord, and then I lose the one I'm on. Asking me questions that can only be answered by looking at a different Discord channel is not gonna... It's just gonna fluster me. Thank you to James for tipping 20, who says, thanks for the entertainment, Joe. You are most welcome. That gets us 5 past our first face camera expansion milestone. Here we go. Howdy, y'all. Grow Hills here, expanding as I always do in Nashville, Tennessee. Dee-da-dee-da-dee, dee-da-dee-da-dee-dee-dee. That gets us now 15 away from the next face camera expansion milestone. The problem with the competition is I've been corresponding with all the judges in Pacific time because they all live on the West Coast. And I have an alarm set to wake me up so that I can be here in time to do it tomorrow. But I don't have that in front of me. That I'm trying to do this show. I'm not worried about tomorrow's show. Okay. So, okay. What are we doing? So we've got Chapter 17 of Moby Dick loaded up for us to read. We need to empty my inventory so I can have free reign to go do all the other stuff I got to do. Got a lot to do today. Can't do it with all this stuff in my inventory. So we're just going to empty out some of this here and some of that there and there, whatever. Okay. So, having done that, what else do we need to do before we get started? Yeah, so somebody asking me what I did today. I spent most of my day preparing to move. My daughter and I went and picked up 30 moving boxes, which fortunately we were able to fit into the very small lift on the way back. I maybe should have called for a Lift XL, which is like their larger variant, but I was like, these are flat because they're not unfolded moving boxes. They're just boxes of cardboard that are flats, and like I bought a few rolls of tape and a bunch of flat boxes. And we packed the first 10 boxes for our move and stacked them up by the door. So we're gonna have plenty to do, more of that in the future. Okay, so my inventory is now free. My gear is repaired. My elytra's not doing great, but that'll get fixed naturally. Okay, so I think we need to figure out what my actual focus is going to be for this reading so that the time-lapse, if I'm all over the place, the time-lapse won't look good, right? To make the time-lapse look good, we need to pick one place. Oh yeah, if you haven't seen it, I adjusted a bunch of camera mod settings so that I can fly better. Ta-da! I'm really happy with how that turned out. But anyway, so yeah, let's scout out what we're going to work on today. Because whatever we work on, we want it to fit into one time lapse, right? So we know that we need to extend 2 sets of roads through there. So that's actually a really good choice. This area is important to clear so that Cub can use it for a build. But honestly, that area over there mirrors it, and I could just give Cub that area and be ready and done way sooner. So No, tips 5. He says maybe this can go to a new mattress per your last episode. Thank you. Yes, I do need money to move and buy new furniture, specifically mattresses. Most of the furniture we have is going to be fine for the new place, but I definitely need to replace my mattress. It has been a problem. Okay. So, okay. Where were we? Yeah. So before we start reading chapter 17 of Moby Dick, I want to remind y'all, this is a book written a long time ago. And it's about a guy who is a white American Protestant becoming extremely close friends and roommates with a African man that he assumes is a cannibal who does not believe in Jesus. And this story, in a lot of ways, is very progressive. But the author has the main character, the point of view character, does a lot of like justifications for why it's not weird that he's able to be friends with this man. It's gonna sound very narrow-minded and racist and problematic in a lot of ways. That's part of the time, and it's also part of how writers at the time who were trying to shake some of those problems or some people trying to be progressive at the time needed an excuse to write in characters like this in different ways. And so I am not in any way endorsing the beliefs or statements that the point of view character makes in the next 2 chapters of this book, or really any of this book. This book is important because it captures a moment of change in a lot of a time of change in a lot of things in the world, and it's also weird. And it was weird enough that it ended up creating a lot of ripples throughout Western culture and society. It's worth reading from an academic standpoint. I want you to appreciate, please, that these are not me endorsing these views. I'm reading this because I believe it has value for people who live in a society shaped by still extant works of art from a century or 2 ago to directly interact with and learn from those works of art, not just to let other people summarize them for you. And so, I mean, yes, I am acting as an intermediary by reading this, but you have the text in front of you if you're following along at home. We did the same thing with Dracula. There's some stuff in Dracula, not great. But that doesn't mean that the work has no value from a literary or cultural standpoint, and won't help people today better appreciate other works that were created since, or encourage general intellectual curiosity. Okay. I really should have something like that written down instead of stumbling through it every time, but that's what we're doing. Okay. Let's see. What else do I need to remind people? With the tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. I will not necessarily immediately take a break in the middle of a paragraph to read the tip. They're kind of... most of the chapters in this book are pretty short. Not all of them. The next 2 chapters are actually kind of long, so I might acknowledge tips at like logical breaks in the chapters. Although I don't know where those are yet because I don't really read ahead too much. Part of this is also I'm practicing reading aloud improvisationally. Shark Ranger, that book is not in the public domain. We are only reading things in the public domain. I've had a lot of requests from people, oh, you should read this book. It's better than Moby Dick. And I'm like, I don't have pay the author of that book money. If I did, I'd consider it. But, like, you know, somebody wanted me to read one of the but like anything that would cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars to get the license to, I'm not going to read. I I spent a lot of money on cardboard boxes today. Like that's where my finances are at. I looked at that and I was like, it's a lot of money on cardboard boxes. But I've tried moving with like the free boxes from the liquor stores before, and like moving boxes are the way to go if you have a lot of books. Okay. So I'm not going to yeah, if I'm concerned about how much 30 cardboard boxes are costing me, I'm not able to afford to like pay somebody like Brandon Sanderson to read his books. I love his books, but I don't have the money. And authors that I like even less, I'm less likely, even if I had the money, to pay them. Yeah. Okie dokie Crisco says the value of reading stuff in the public domain is like I would never sit down and read Moby Dick on my own time, but listening to Joe read it, I can actually interact with Moby Dick. Yeah, there's a value here. Like honestly, this kind of feels like, so I used to do a film class, not a film class, but like a watch and discuss, what do you call it? A film on my Patreon. We used to do like a monthly film thing where we would watch a movie and then talk about it. But the problem was, at the end of the day, everybody was like, why don't you do Ghostbusters or Beetlejuice? And I'm like, because those are movies you would already watch on your own. And I want to watch movies that I think are very odd and artistically interesting that nobody else would watch otherwise. Yeah, like kind of a film club. But the problem was, nobody wanted to watch the weird movies I wanted to watch. And I was like, well, there's no point in me doing it if you're just watching movies that you would have watched anyway. So I kind of just stopped doing it. I've tried doing it a few times since, but it kind of lost momentum. Because, like, the other thing, though, too, is a lot of the movies I wanted to do were really obscure. And so there wasn't, like, a good way to get them for free. You had to, like, go buy them. But it's like, once again, if it's just something that, like, anybody can watch on Hulu, you would have probably already watched it anyway. Like, and so, I don't know. I've gotta balance stuff like this. It's hard for me to find things that are worth my time that people want to do. If that makes any sense. It's like, cause people can watch Beetlejuice on their own. Shark Ranger says, Joe, this is peak grinding. I mean, we are going to start grinding this peak. That is literally what we're going to start doing. We are on top of a peak. We're going to put in a marker for replay mod so we know when to start the time lapse. And then we're going to read from chapter 17 of Moby Dick, or The Whale, the Ramadan. As Queequeg's Ramadan, or fasting and humiliation, was to continue all day, I did not choose to disturb him till towards nightfall, for I cherish the greatest respect toward everybody's religious obligations, never mind how comical, and could not find it in my heart to undervalue even a congregation of ants worshipping a toadstool, or those other creatures in certain parts of our earth who, with a degree of footmanism quite unprecedented in other planets, bow down before the torso of a deceased landed proprietor, merely on account of the inordinate possessions yet owned and rented in his name. I say we good Presbyterian Christians should be charitable in these things, and not fancy ourselves so superior to other mortals, pagans and whatnot, because of their half-crazy conceits on these subjects. There was Queequeg, now certainly entertaining the most absurd notions about Yojo and his Ramadan. But what of that? Queequeg thought he knew what he was about, I suppose. He seemed to be content. And there, let him rest. All our arguing with him would not avail. Let him be, I say, and heaven have mercy on us all. Presbyterians and pagans alike. For we are all somehow dreadfully cracked about the head, and sadly need mendin'. Toward evening, when I felt assured that all his performances and rituals must be over, I went up to his room and knocked at the door. But no answer. I tried to open it, but it was fastened inside. "Queequeg," said I softly through the keyhole. All silent. "I say, Queequeg, why don't you speak? It is I, Ishmael." But yet all remained still as before. I began to grow alarmed. I had allowed him such abundant time, I thought he might have had an apoplectic fit. I looked through the keyhole, but the door, opening into an odd corner of the room, the keyhole prospect was but a crooked and sinister one. I could see only part of the footboard of the bed and a line of the wall, but nothing more. I was surprised to behold, resting against the wall, the wooden shaft of Queequeg's harpoon, which the landlady the evening previous had taken from him, before our mounting to the chamber. That's strange, thought I. But at any rate, since the harpoon stands yonder, and he seldom or never goes abroad without it, therefore he must be inside here, and no possible mistake. "Queequeg! Queequeg!" All still. Something must have happened. Apoplexy. I tried to burst open the door, but it stubbornly resisted. Running down the stairs, I quickly stated my suspicions to the first person I met, the chambermaid. "La la!" she cried. "I thought something must be the matter. I went to make the bed after breakfast, and the door was locked, but not a mouse to be heard, and it's just been so silent ever since. But I thought maybe you had both gone off and locked your baggage in for safekeeping. La la! Ma'am! Mistress! Murder! Mrs. Hussey! Apoplexy!" And with these cries, she ran toward the kitchen, I following. Mrs. Hussey soon appeared, with a mustard pot in one hand and a vinegar cruet in the other, having just broken away from the occupation of attending to the castors, and scolding her little boy meantime. "Woodhouse!" cried I. "Which way to it? Run, for God's sake, and fetch something to pry open the door. The axe! The axe! He's had a stroke, depend upon it." And so saying, I was unmethodically rushing upstairs, again empty-handed, when Mrs. Hussey interposed the mustard pot and the vinegar cruet, and the entire castor of her countenance. "What's the matter with you, young man?" "Get the axe, for God's sake. Run for the doctor, someone, while I pry it open." "Look here," said the landlady, quickly putting down the vinegar cruet, so as to have one hand free. "Look here, you're talking about prying open any of my doors. And with that, she seized my arm. "What's the matter with you? What's the matter with you, shipmate?" In a calm but rapid a manner as possible, I gave her to understand the whole case. Unceremoniously clapping the vinegar cruet to one side of her nose, she ruminated for an instant, then exclaimed, "No, I haven't seen it since I put it there." Running to a little closet under the landing of the stairs, she glanced in, and returning, told me that Queequeg's harpoon was missing. "He's killed himself. It's unfortunate. Stig's done all over again, but there goes another counterpane. God pity his poor mother. It'll be the ruin of my house. has the poor lad's sister. Where's that girl? There, Betty, go to Snarls the painter and tell him to paint me a sign with no suicides permitted here and no smoking in the parlor. Might as well kill both birds at once. Kill. Ugh. The Lord be merciful to his ghost. What's that noise there? You, young man, avast there! And, running up after me, she caught me as I was again trying to force open the door. I won't allow it. I won't have my premises spoiled. Go for the locksmith. There's one about a mile from here. But avast! Putting her hand in her side pocket. Here's a key that'll fit, I guess. Let's see. And with that, she turned it in the lock. But alas, Queequeg's supplemental bolt remained unwithdrawn within. Have to burst it open, said I, and was running down the entry a little for a good start when the landlady caught me, again vowing that I should not break down her premises. But I tore from her, and with a sudden bodily rush, dashed myself full against the mark. With a prodigious noise, the door flew open, and the knob slamming against the wall sent plaster to the ceiling. And there, good heavens, there sat Queequeg, altogether cool and self-collected, right in the middle of the room, squatting on his hams and holding Yojo on top of his head. He looked neither one way nor the other way, but sat like a carved image with scarce a sign of active life. Queequeg, said I, going up to him. Queequeg, what's the matter with you? He ain't been sitting so all day, has he? Said the landlady. But all we said, not a word could we drag out from him. I almost felt like pushing him over, so as to change his position, for it was almost intolerable. It seemed so painful and unnaturally constrained, especially as in all probability he had been sitting so for upwards of 8 or 10 hours, going too without his regular meals. Mrs. Hussey, he's alive at all events, so leave us if you please, and I will see to this strange affair myself. Closing the door upon the landlady, I endeavored to prevail upon Queequeg to take a chair, but in vain. There he sat, and all he could do for my polite arts and blandishments, he would not move a peg, nor say a single word, nor even look at me, nor notice my presence in the slightest way. I wonder, thought I, if this can possibly be part of his Ramadan. Do they fast on their hams this way in his native island? It must be so, yes. It's part of his creed, I suppose. Well, then, let him rest. He'll get up sooner or later, no doubt. Can't last forever, thank God. And his Ramadan comes only once a year. And I don't believe it's very punctual then. I went down to supper. After sitting a long time listening to the long stories of some sailors who had just come from a plum-pudding voyage, as they called it, that is, a short whaling voyage in a schooner or brig, confined to north of the line, in the Atlantic Ocean only. After listening to these plum-puddingers till nearly 11 o'clock, I went straight upstairs to go to bed, feeling quite sure by this time Queequeg must have certainly brought his Ramadan to a termination. But no, there he was, just where I had left him. He had not stirred even an inch. I began to grow vexed with him. It seemed so downright senseless and insane to be sitting there all day and half the night on his hams in a cold room, holding a piece of wood on his head. For heaven's sake, Queequeg, Get up and shake yourself. Get up and have some supper. You'll starve. You'll kill yourself, Queequeg. But not a word. Oh, that was the full... Oh, no. I changed the zoom level instead of scrolling. Give me a second. Good time to post the tipping link. Yeah, sorry. I lost my place by... I was trying to scroll down, and I accidentally resized the entire document to be tiny, and then could not zoom back in where I was. This is the joy of live readings rather than a book on tape. Meanwhile, I'll also answer some questions we got in the chat. Tiny Giant asked if this is the original or the paraphrase version. And this is the original. Project Gutenberg link is above. Okay. Here was I. Where was I? Let's climb back up here first. Okay. Despairing of him, therefore, I determined to go to bed and to sleep, and no doubt, before a great while, he would follow me. But previous to turning in, I took my heavy bearskin jacket and threw it over him, as it promised to be a very cold night, and he had nothing but his ordinary round jacket on. For some time, do all that I would, I could not get into the faintest doze. I had blown out the candle, and the mere thought of Queequeg, not 4 feet off, sitting there in that uneasy position, stark alone in the cold and dark. This made me really wretched. Think of it, sleeping all night in the same room with a wide-awake pagan on his hams, on his dreary, unaccountable Ramadan. But somehow, I dropped off at last, and knew nothing till break of day, when, looking over at the bedside, there squatted Queequeg, as if he had been screwed down to the floor. But as soon as the first glimpse of sun entered the window, up he got, with stiff and grating joints, but with a cheerful look, limped towards me, where I lay, pressed his forehead against mine, and said his Ramadan was over. Now, as before I hinted, I have no objection to any person's religion, be it what it may, so long as that person doesn't kill themselves or insult another person, because that other person don't believe it also. But when a man's religion becomes really frantic, when it is a positive torment to him, and, in fine, makes this earth of ours an uncomfortable place to lodge in, then I think it's high time to take that individual aside and argue the point with him. And just so now, I did with Queequeg. "Queequeg," said I, "get into bed now and lie and listen to me." I then went on, beginning with the rise and progress of the primitive religions, and coming down to the various religions of the present time, during which I labored to show Queequeg that all these Lents, Ramadans, and prolonged ham-squattings in the cold, cheerless rooms were stark nonsense, bad for the health, useless for the soul, opposed, in short, to the obvious laws of hygiene and common sense. I told him, too, that he being in other things such an extremely sensible and sagacious savage, it pained me, very badly pained me, to see him now so deplorably foolish about this ridiculous Ramadan of his. Besides, argued I, fasting makes the body cave in. Hence, the spirit caves in. And all thoughts born of a fast must necessarily be half-starved. This is the reason why most dyspeptic religionists must necessarily be half-starved. This is the... This is the reason why most dyspeptic religionists cherish such melancholy notions about their hereafters. In one word, Queequeg, said I, rather digressively, hell is an idea first born on an undigested apple dumpling, and since then perpetrated through the hereditary dyspepsias nurtured by Ramadans. I then asked Queequeg whether he himself was ever troubled with dyspepsia, expressing the idea very plainly so that he could take it all in. He said no, only upon one memorable occasion. It was after a great feast given by his father the king, on the gaining of a great battle wherein 50 of the enemy had been killed by about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and all cooked and eaten that very evening. No more Queequeg. That will do. For I knew the inferences without his further hinting them. I had seen a sailor who had visited that very island, and he told me that it was the custom, when a great battle had been gained there, to barbecue all the slain in their yard or garden of the victor. And then, one by one, they were placed in great wooden trenchers, and garnished round like a pillow with breadfruit and coconuts, and with some parsley in their mouths, were sent round with the victor's compliments to all his friends, just as though these presents were so many Christmas turkeys. After all, I do not think that my remarks about religion made much impression upon Queequeg, because, in the first place, he somehow seemed dull of hearing on the important subject, unless considered from his own point of view. And, in the second place, he did not more than 1/3 understand me, couch my ideas simply as I would, and finally, he no doubt thought he knew a great more about the true religion than I did. He looked at me with a sort of condescending concern and compassion, as though he thought it a great pity that a sensible young man should be so hopelessly lost to evangelical pagan piety. At last we rose and dressed, and Queequeg, taking a prodigiously hearty breakfast of chowders of all sorts, so that the landlady should not make much profit by reason of his Ramadan, we sallied out to board the Pequod, sauntering along and picking our teeth with halibut bones. And that concludes chapter 17 of Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. We are going to be reading chapter 18 up next, but usually we take a quick break. Yeah, this chapter is pretty notable in that it's really obvious that Melville is trying to make fun of modern Protestant religions of his era by having this guy be like, I'm so open-minded to everybody's stuff, but also let me lecture this guy who doesn't speak my language for an hour. This, of course, was only a problem in that specific time period, and fortunately never arises today. Okay. Bum. Let's go ahead and get all the blocks. We're gonna put them in the boxes made of wood. So far, we've met Ishmael. We've met Queequeg. We've met Captain Peleg and Captain Bildad, two of the owners of the ship that they're about to set sail on. But we haven't seen them all in one place yet. And the next chapter does a great deal of addressing, well, wouldn't it be funny if they were all in the same place? Those guys are individually pretty hilarious. What if we put them all in one scene? So we're going to be getting to that shortly. I do need to empty my inventory. It's a lot easier for me to do certain inventory management tasks when I'm not reading. Shark Ranger, I'm not Ijevin. That's a different guy. Elton the Skeleton says, this is far more fun than how my high school lit teacher presented Moby Dick. There's some abridged versions of Moby Dick, but what makes Moby Dick interesting to read and funny is all the stuff you have to cut out to get it to a decent length. Okay, so... Okay, removing all this stuff here, looking around. There's a lot more soil here than I was expecting, which is not bad, because we need a lot of that anyway. It's actually kind of refreshing, actually, needing to fix the shovel at the same time we're fixing everything else. What's down here? Oh, that cave, apparently. That just works right out, huh? Let's grab these blocks and we can throw some of these away. Yeah, Minecraft does have great destruction sounds. Bum, 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 bum. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and keep mountaintop removing here. La da 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 da. So let me go ahead and update the links in both chats real quick, and then we'll get started on the next chapter. So this is going to be called Moby Dick, Chapter 18. And we're going to pin that down there. Place pinned message. And send that also out here. Wait, why did that not go? Give me a second, hold on. Getting links posted. Da 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 da. Okay. So here we go. Sorting this out. We're gonna arguably we want to remove the tallest part of any given element at a time, but also we are about to be out of food. Is there any chance that any of these berries over here have grown back, or are those out of range? Not really. Okay. Have these actually updated the pins? No, dang it. Okay, pin message. Manually unpin, end of stream. Cool. Okay, so pins are fixed.
Alpacatastic says, I'm totally open-minded as long as it's not weird. I feel like you could go more specific on this and it gets funnier. I'm totally open-minded as long as it's not in my hotel room. Okay. Chapter 18. His Mark. As we were walking down the end of the wharf toward the ship, Queequeg carrying his harpoon, Captain Peleg, in his gruff voice, loudly hailed us from his wigwam, saying he had not suspected my friend was a cannibal, and further announcing that he let no cannibals on board that craft, unless they previously produced their papers. What do you mean by that? Captain Peleg, said I, now jumping on the bulwarks and leaving my comrade standing on the wharf.
I mean, said Captain Bildad in his hollow voice, sticking his head out from behind Peleg's out of the wigwam. He must show that he's converted. Son of darkness, he said, turning to Queequeg, art thou in present communion with any Christian church?
Why, said I, he's a member of the First Congregational Church. Here be it said that many tattooed savages sailing in Nantucket ships at last came to be converted into the churches. First Congregational Church? What? That worships in Deacon Deuteronomy Coleman's meeting house? And so saying, taking out his spectacles, he rubbed them with a great yellow bandana handkerchief, and putting them on very carefully, came out of the wigwam, and leaning stiffly over the bulwarks, took a good long look at Queequeg. How long hath he been a member? He said, then turning to me. Not very long, I guess, young man. No, said Peleg, and he hasn't been baptized right either, or else it would have washed some of that devil's blue off his face. Do tell now, cried Bildad. Is this Philistine a regular member of Deacon Deuteronomy's meeting? I never saw him going there, and I pass by it every Lord's Day. I don't know anything about Deacon Deuteronomy or his meeting. All I know is that Queequeg here is a born member of the First Congregational Church. He is a deacon himself, Queequeg is. Young man, said Bildad sternly, thou art skylarking with me. Explain thyself, thou young Hittite. What church dost thou mean? Answer me. Finding myself thus hard pushed, I replied, I mean, sir, the same ancient Catholic church to which you and I and Captain Peleg there and Queequeg here and all of us and every mother's son and soul of us belong, the great and everlasting first congregation of this whole worshipping world. We belong to that, only some of us cherish some queer crochets, no ways touching the grand belief in that we all join hands. Splice! Thou meanest splice hands, cried Peleg, drawing near. Young man, you better ship for a missionary instead of a foremast hand. I never heard a better sermon. Deacon Deuteronomy, why, Father Mapple himself couldn't beat it, and he's reckoned something. Come aboard, come aboard. Never mind about the papers. I say, tell Quahog there, what's that you call him? Tell Quahog there to step along. By the great acre. What a harpoon he's got there. Looks like a good stuff, that. And he handles it about right. I say, Quahog, or whatever your name is, did you ever stand in the head of a whaleboat
Did you ever strike a fish?
Without saying a word, Queequeg, in his wild sort of way, jumped upon the bulwarks, from thence into the bows of one of the whaleboats hanging to the side, and then, bracing his left knee and poising his harpoon, cried out in some such way as this.
Captain! You see him, small drop tar on water there. You see him? Well, suppose him one whale eye. Well done!
And, taking sharp aim at it, he darted the iron right over Bildad's broad brim, clean across the ship decks, and struck the glistening tar spot out of sight.
No,
said Queequeg, quietly hauling in the line.
Suppose him well eye. Why, that well dead!
Quick, Bildad!
Said Peleg, his partner, who, aghast at the close vicinity of the flying harpoon, had retreated toward the cabin gangway.
Quick, I say you, Bildad! Get the ship's papers! We must have Quahog, in one of our boats. Look, Quahog, we'll give you the 90th lay. And that's more than ever was given to a harpooner yet out of Nantucket.
So down we went into the cabin, and to my great joy, Queequeg was soon enrolled among the same ship's company to which I myself belonged. When all preliminaries were over and Peleg had got everything ready for signing, he turned to me and said,
I guess Quahog there don't know how to write, does he? I say, Quahog, blessed, dost thou sign thy name or make thy mark?
But at this question, Queequeg, who had twice or thrice before taken part in similar ceremonies, looked no way abashed, but taking the offered pen, copied upon the paper, in the proper place, an exact counterpart of a queer round figure which was tattooed upon his arm, so that through Captain Peleg's obstinate mistake touching his appellative, it stood something like this.
Quahog, his X mark.
Meanwhile, Captain Bildad sat earnestly and steadfastly eyeing Queequeg, and at last, rising solemnly and fumbling in the huge pockets of his broad-skirted drab coat, took out a bundle of tracts, and selecting one entitled The Latter Day Coming, or No Time to Lose, placed it in Queequeg's hands, and said,
Son of darkness, I must do my duty by thee. I am part owner of the ship, and feel concerned for the souls of all its crew. If thou still clingest to thy pagan ways, which I sadly fear, I beseech thee, remain not for I a Belial bondsman. Spurn the idle ball, and the hideous dragon, turn from the wrath to come. Mind thy eye, I say. Oh, goodness gracious, steer clear of the fiery pit.
Something of the salt sea yet lingered in old Bildad's language, heterogeneously mixed with scriptural and domestic phrases.
Avast there, Bildad, avast now spoiling our harpooner,
cried Peleg.
Pious harpooneers never make good voyagers. It takes the shark out of them. No harpooner is worth a straw who ain't pretty sharkish. There was young Nat Swain, once the bravest boatheader out of all Nantucket and the vineyard. He joined the meeting and never came to good. He got so frightened about his plaguey soul that he shrinkled and sheared away from whales for fear of afterclaps in case he got stove and went to Davy Jones. Peleg, Peleg, said Bildad, lifting his eyes and hands. Thou thyself, as I myself, hast seen many a perilous time. Thou knowest, Peleg, what it is to have the fear of death. How then canst thou prate in this ungodly guise? Thou beliest thine own heart, Peleg. Tell me, when this same Pequod here had her 3 masts overboard in that typhoon on Japan, that same voyage when thou went mate with Captain Ahab, didst thou not think of death and judgment then? Oh, hear him now, cried Peleg, marching across the cabin, thrusting his hands far down into his pockets. Hear him, all of ye, think of that, when every moment we thought the ship would sink. Death and judgment then. Every moment that we... What? With all 3 masts making such an everlasting thundering against the side, and every sea breaking over us, fore and aft. Oh, think of judgment then? What? No time to think about death then. Life was what Captain Ahab and I was thinking of, and how to save all hands, how to jury-rig masts, how to get into the nearest port. That was what I was thinking of.
Bildad said no more, but buttoning up his coat, stalked on deck, where we followed him. Then he stood very quietly overlooking some sailmakers who were mending a topsail in the waist. Now and then he stooped to pick up a patch or save an end of tarred twine, which otherwise might have been wasted. And that concludes Chapter 18 of Moby Dick by Herman Melville. Hey, thank you very much to everyone who's enjoying the show. Welcome, folks who popped in the middle, like Gwynno Blade. Yep, we read books on Saturday night. We have a link to Moby Dick in the top. But also thank you to Karen for tipping 10, who says, "The voice is a chef's kiss." Well, thank you very much. That is going to put us evenly at our next Face Camera Expansion milestone, by my reckoning, on this here abacus. So here we go. Please direct your attention down to the lower left so I can expand. Joe. Do. Yeah, welcome. The grinding pauses for extra eloquence. There are some voices I can't do well with.
So, to do a proper, Ted Theodore Logan, I need to, look around and gesture with open arms.
To do, the basic Ishmael voice, which I'm kind of using, a Cape Cod accent for. I just have to speak like this. It's a very restrained voice, so even moving my arms at all actually is a distraction from it. Whereas when I'm doing the already the strongest man in the world voice for Queequeg, I need to be like, "Boy, how dare you!" I have to clench my muscles. It's not even just flexing. It's like my whole body needs to be pulled tight to do that voice. So yeah, for some of the voices, I might occasionally step away from the mouse. Okay, so let's go with let's go ahead and update. I need to repost the tipping link, but I also need to update the chapter link. I think we have time because we're only an hour in. So these chapters weren't quite as long as some of them, but they're not as short as some of these either. So I feel like we can definitely get chapter 19 in. I'm going to update our pins here on both Twitch and Discord. Okay, so we're going to pin that. I'm going to replace pin message on YouTube. Manually unpin it into stream. Okay. But yeah. Bum 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 bada bada bum 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 bada dun 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 doo 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 doo. Okay, so how are we doing on pickaxes? Actually, pretty well, shockingly. And in terms of mountain removal progress, it's going all right. So it seems like everything is going pretty well for Ishmael and Queequeg at this point. But chapter 19 is called The Prophet. I've mentioned before in some of my Moby Dick streams that one of the things that got me to pick up Moby Dick in the first place is that one of my favorite illustrators, Evan Dom, who I've had the good fortune to meet, he's an incredibly talented but also very humble artist. He loves sharing his knowledge and experience with others. And he's a very chill guy. I have nothing but good things to say about Evan Dom. He started doing a series of illustrations as he read through Moby Dick, and eventually published them as part of a Kickstarter project. And it's one of my favorite... whoa. That's going to be a thing later, huh? Whoops. We might need to fly up out of here. Okay. So... mining back that way, make a note. You can only do so much of that. But anyway, Evan Dom has been doing... he did a series of illustrations. Not one per chapter, because this book has a lot of chapters, but some chapters get an illustration. And the upcoming chapter, The Prophet, is one such chapter. So let me find a link to the illustration that goes with our next chapter here. And I'll share that in the chats for y'all. I'm looking really hard for this link. I'm not. I'm going to. Just give me a sec. But it's like I got such good momentum with this gravel. Okay. I'm having fun. I'm having too much fun playing Minecraft to go find an illustration. Okay, here we go. Nom 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 nom. Okay, so if we go to Moby Dick Illustrated and we search Moby Dick Illustrated Evan Dom Prophet. The Prophet. Come on. Pom 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 pom. Is there not? I feel like there's a way to search within a blog. Oh yeah, here it is. It's at the top. Prophet. Helps if you spell the word right. So how can I get a link to that? Okay. So, welcome GG After Dark. Step 1, listen to Joe Hill's Moby Dick. Step 2, question mark. Step 3, Prophet. Yeah, there we go. Here's The Prophet as illustrated by Evan Dom. So let's go ahead and we're going to eat real quick. We're going to check the time. It's got to be close to midnight. My body's talking to me. Says time for danger. La 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 da 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 da. So, I think I'm just going to post the tipping link one last time, empty my inventory, and then we will begin chapter 19, The Prophet. Okie dokie, Crisco says, I think this is the third Joe Hill stream in a row with a reference. I think it's been the same one every time. It's me going, what's the time? It's got to be close to midnight. Okay. So inventory is empty. We are almost out of food. I really need a better system than these berry bushes here. I should probably plant berry bushes closer by over there, is the actual answer, probably. But, okay. So we're about to read chapter 19, The Prophet, after I post the tipping link and remind folks, tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. We've been reading for about an hour now. Just as a reminder, tips that roll in the middle of the chapter won't be acknowledged until I screw up something and need to take a break anyway because I'm tripping over my own words. Okay. So, bum 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 bum, bum bum bum, bum 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 bum. Okay, let's go. Does bone mealing existing berry bushes make them make berries faster? Oh wait, why don't I cook all this salmon? Okay, I guess I can just eat this salmon too, huh? Hey, it does. That's cool. Welcome back, Scar. Okay. So we're gonna wait for night to turn into day. And I think we are ready to rock and go. Everybody, please turn to chapter 19 of Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. Chapter 19, The Prophet.
Shipmates, have ye sailed in that ship?
Queequeg and I had just left the Pequod, and were sauntering away from the water, for the moment each occupied with his own thoughts, when the above words were put to us by a stranger, who, pausing before us, leveled his massive forefinger at the vessel in question. He was but shabbily apparelled, in faded jacket and patched trousers, a rag of a black handkerchief invested in his neck. A confluent smallpox had in all directions flowed over his face, and left it like the complicated ribbed bed of a torrent when the rushing waters have been dried up.
Have ye shipped in her?
He repeated. You mean the ship Pequod, I suppose? Said I, trying to gain a little more time for an uninterrupted look at him.
Aye, the Pequod, that ship there,
he said, drawing back his whole arm and then rapidly shoving it straight out from him, with the fixed bayonet of his pointer finger darted full at the object. Yes, we have just signed the articles.
Anything down there about your souls?
About what?
Oh, perhaps you haven't gotten any. No matter, though. I know many chaps who haven't gotten any. Well, good luck to 'em. They're all the better off for it. Soul's just sort of a fifth wheel on a wagon.
What are you jabbering about, shipmate? Said I.
He's got enough, though, to make up for all deficiencies of that sort in other chaps.
Abruptly said the stranger, placing a nervous emphasis upon the word he. Queequeg, said I. Let us go. This fella has broken loose from somewhere. He's talking about something and somebody we don't know.
Stop!
Cried the stranger.
Ye said true. You haven't seen old Thunder yet, have ye?
Who is old Thunder? Said I again, riveted with the insane earnestness of his manner.
Captain Ahab.
What? The captain of our ship, the Pequod?
Aye. Among some of us old sailor chaps. He goes by that name. Ye haven't seen him yet, have ye?
No, we haven't. He's sick, so they say, but is getting better and will be all right again before long.
All right again before long.
Laughed the stranger with a solemnly derisive sort of laugh.
Look ye, when Captain Ahab is all right, then this left arm of mine will be all right. Not before.
What do you know about him?
What did they tell you about him? Say that.
They didn't tell much of anything about him. Only I've heard that he's a good whale hunter and a good captain to his crew.
That's true, yes, both true enough. But you must jump when he gives an order. Step and growl and go, that's the word with Captain Ahab. But nothing about that thing that happened to him off Cape Horn long ago when he lay like dead for 3 days and nights. Nothing about that deadly scrimmage with the silver calabash he spat into. And nothing about losing his leg last voyage, according to prophecy. Didn't you hear a word about them matters? And, something more, eh? No, I don't think you did. How could you? Who knows of it? Not all Nantucket, I guess, but howsoever mayhap you've heard tell about the leg and how he lost it. You heard of that, I dare say. Oh, yes, that everyone knows most. I mean, they know he's got only one leg, and that the Paramacetti took the other one off.
My friend, what all this gibberish of yours is about, I do not know, and I do not much care, for it seems to me that you must be a little damaged in the head. But if you are speaking of Captain Ahab, and of that ship there, the Pequod, then let me tell you that I know all about the loss of his leg.
All about it? Sure you do. All.
Pretty sure. With finger pointed and eye leveled at the Pequod, the beggar-like stranger stood a moment, as if in a troubled reverie. Then, starting a little, turned and said,
Ye've shipped, have ye? Names down on the papers. Well, what is signed is signed. And what's to be will be, and then again, perhaps it won't be. After all, anyhow, it's all fixed and arranged and ready, and some sailors or other must go after him. So I suppose as well these as any other men. God pity 'em. Morning to ye, shipmates. Morning, the ineffable heavens bless ye. I'm sorry I stopped ye.
Look here, friend. If you have something important to tell us, out with it. But if you are only trying to bamboozle us, you are mistaken in your game. That is all that I have to say.
And it's, said very well, and I like to hear a chap talk up that way. You're just the man for him. The likes of ye. Morning to ye, shipmates, morning. The ineffable heavens... Wait. Hold on. Oh, when you get there, tell 'em I've concluded not to make one of 'em.
My dear fellow, you can't fool us that way. You can't fool us. It is the easiest thing in the world for a man to look like he has a great secret in him.
Yeah. Morning to you, shipmates, morning.
Morning it is. Come along, Queequeg. Let's leave this crazy man alone. But, stop. Tell me your name, will you? Elijah. Elijah, thought I, and we walked away, both commenting, after each other's fashion, upon this ragged old sailor, and agreed he was nothing but a humbug trying to be a bugbear. But we had gone not perhaps 100 yards, when, chancing to turn a corner, and looking back as I did so, who should be seen but Elijah, following us, though at a distance. Somehow, the sight of him struck me so, that I said nothing to Queequeg of him being behind, but passed on with my comrade, anxious to see if the stranger would turn the corner that we did. He did, and then it seemed to me that he was dogging us. But with what intent or for what, I could not for the life of me imagine. The circumstance, coupled with his ambiguous, half-hinting, half-revealing, shrouded sort of talk, now begat in me all kinds of vague wonderments and half-apprehensions, all concerned with the Pequod, and Captain Ahab, and the leg he had lost, and the Cape Horn fit, and the silver calabash, and the prediction of the Squaw Tistig, and the voyages we had bound ourselves to sail, and 100 other shadowy things. I was resolved to satisfy myself whether this ragged Elijah was really dogging us or not, but with intent crossed the way with Queequeg, and on that side of it retraced our steps. But Elijah passed on, without seeming to notice us. This relieved me, and once more, and finally, as it seemed to me, I pronounced him, in my heart, a humbug. And that concludes Chapter 19 of Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. Seems like it's a good time to lay our heads down and dream. So yeah, 3 chapters today. Queequeg and his first visit to the Pequod, as well as the Prophet. Okay. Let's go ahead and lay our heads down and dream in game here. How long is the next chapter? I feel like we have the ability to read another chapter. This is not a particularly long one, and those ones weren't particularly long ones either. Ethan Doya says, it still says setting up stream. Yeah, I'm not really satisfied with the setup. But I'm not going to let that get in the way of having a good time. So, let's go ahead and get some of these blocks put away here. Okay. Boom, boom, ba da 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 da, do 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 do. Yeah, the shovel is definitely almost gone, but we still have plenty of pickaxe left, and I don't want to waste a trip to the end for no reason, because it'll disrupt the time lapse. Disrupt time lapses. I should really have a second good shovel though, because this is silly having 2 picks and only the 1 shovel. Especially when we're dealing with something like this, where it's like, oh boy, there's just dirt everywhere. So anybody have any thoughts so far on the last 3 chapters we've read? Anything, thoughts, questions, concerns? So yeah, the prophet in this story is of course a forerunner to the modern horror film prophet. Which is, I was going to say lampshaded, but like directly acknowledged in the film Cabin in the Woods, where there's a guy at the gas station, the Harbinger, whose whole job it is to make sure that the kids are warned not to visit the cabin. They have to visit the cabin, but they also have to be warned not to. It's all by the numbers. Cabin in the Woods is a very good movie. I enjoy it quite a bit too. El Bubbly says, I loved your voice for Elijah. It was very effective. Thanks. Yeah, I was going for like a slightly more nautical Beetlejuice. Boetlejuice, if you will. Okay. Speaking of the Boetlejuice, we are $20 away from our next face camera expansion milestone. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. No. Okay, when you put Raven Folk in parentheses there after Kobold, Kobolds are like little like lizard dragon guys. Maybe you're thinking of a different word. I think the Raven Folk in D&D have a different name. They're not called kobolds. They're called Kenku. Yeah, Kenku. No worries. But yeah, if you rolled a kobold and you're like, I flap my wings angrily, your dungeon master would be like, oh, what wings? Did you like stop by the wing hut on the way here? Kobolds, famously not birds. Kobolds might eat chicken wings, but that's the extent of their affiliation with wings. It's fine, no. Sorry for calling you out on that, but I was just like, I feel like you're talking about something else, and I couldn't remember it either, honestly, at first, until somebody else said it. I remembered the Ken part, but I'm like, it's not Ken Shi. It's not Ken Shui. What is it? Bye. Spleef pigs. Okay, that should be the most of the dirt on this side anyway. So at this, there's a whole thing over here, huh? I'm trying to get to the point where I can just use the pickaxes. I know, it's gonna break soon. I'm aware. Thanks. Thanks for the update. Appreciate it. That's why I'm trying to get done with this before it runs out. Dun, 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 dun. Evening, NJ. Hope you're doing well. La da da do 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 do. Doesn't fight Dracula, only makes pancakes. Okay, so I think yeah, we're all set up now that we've gotten all that dirt out of the way. To start reading. More dirt. Hold on. I hope you had a good dinner. That sounds nice. Trying my best. Placing all the blocks. There are a lot of good rocks. We just finished chapter 19. We're about to do chapter 20. I haven't posted the updated links yet. Sorry. Let me pull that up. That makes sense, NJ. I hope you enjoy both dinners. Moby Dick, CH20. Hollister. You know who has a similar name to Hollister? Is Aleister Crowley. Okay. So, let's see here. Oh, that's not broken anymore. Up we go. Oh, come on. I don't know, Burke 615. I'm just being dumb. Okay. So, here we go. Chapter 20. All Astir. From Moby Dick by Herman Melville. A day or two passed, and there was great activity aboard the Pequod. Not only were the old sails being mended, but new sails were coming on board, and bolts of canvas and coils of rigging. In short, everything betokened that the ship's preparations were hurrying to a close. Captain Peleg seldom or never went ashore, but sat in his wigwam, keeping a sharp lookout upon all the hands. Bildad did all the purchasing and providing at the stores, and the men employed in the hold and on the rigging were working till long after nightfall. On the day following Queequeg's signing the articles, word was given at all the inns where the ship's company were stopping that their chests must be on board before night, for there was no for there was no telling how soon the vessel might be sailing. So, Queequeg and I got down our traps, resolving, however, to sleep ashore till the last. But it seems they always give very long notice in these cases, and the ship did not sail for several days. But no wonder. There was a great deal to be done, and there is no telling how many things to be thought of before the Pequod was fully equipped. Everyone knows that a multitude of things, beds, saucepans, knives and forks, shovels and tongs, napkins, nutcrackers, and whatnot, are indispensable to the business of housekeeping. Just so with whaling. Which necessitates a 3 years housekeeping upon the wide ocean, far from all grocers, costermongers, doctors, bakers, and bankers. And though this also holds true of merchant vessels, yet not by any means to the same extent as with the whalemen. For besides the great length of the whaling voyage, the numerous articles peculiar to the prosecution of the fishery, and the impossibility of replacing them at the remote harbors usually frequented, it must be remembered that of all ships, whaling vessels are most exposed to accidents of all kinds, and especially to the destruction and loss of the very things upon which the success of the voyage most depends. Hence, spare boats, spare spars, spare lines and harpoons, spare everythings, almost, but a spare captain and a duplicate ship. At the period of our arrival at the island, the heaviest storage of the Pequod had been almost completed, comprising her bread, beef, water, fuel, and iron hoops and staves. But, as before hinted, for some time there was a continual fetching and carrying on board of divers odds and ends of things, both large and small. Chief among those who did this fetching and carrying was Captain Bildad's sister, a lean old lady of a most determined and indefatigable spirit, but withal very kind-hearted, who seemed resolved that, if she could help it, nothing should be found wanting in the Pequod, after once fairly getting to sea. At one time she would come on board with a jar of pickles for the steward's pantry, another time with a bunch of quills for the chief mate's desk, where he kept his log, a third time with a roll of flannel for the small of some rheumatic's back. Never did any woman better deserve her name, which was Charity, Aunt Charity, as everybody called her. And, like a sister of Charity, did this charitable Aunt Charity bustle about hither and thither, ready to turn her hand and heart to anything that promised to yield safety, comfort, and consolation to all on board a ship in which her beloved brother Bildad was concerned, and in which she herself owned a score or two of well-saved dollars. But it was startling to see this excellent-hearted Quakeress coming on board, as she did on the last day, with a long oil ladle in one hand, and a still longer whaling lance in the other. Nor was Bildad himself nor Captain Peleg at all backward. As for Bildad, he carried about with him a long list of the articles needed, and at every fresh interval went down his mark opposite that article attached to the paper. Every once in a while, Peleg came out hobbling of his whalebone dead, roaring at the men down the hatchways, roaring up to the riggers at the masthead, and then concluded by roaring back into the wigwam. During these days of preparation, Queequeg and I often visited the craft, and as often I asked about Captain Ahab and how he was, and when he was going to come on board the ship. To these questions they would answer, but he was getting better and better, and was expected aboard every day. And in the meantime, the two captains, Peleg and Bildad, could attend to everything necessary to fit the vessel for the voyage. If I had been downright honest with myself, I would have seen very plainly in my heart that I did but half fancy being committed this way to so long a voyage, without once laying my eyes on the man who was to be the absolute dictator of it, so soon as the ship sailed out onto the open sea. But when a man suspects any wrong, it sometimes happens that if he's already involved in the matter, he insensibly strives to cover up his suspicions, even from himself. And much this way it was with me. I said nothing, and I tried to think nothing. At last, it was given out that sometime next day, the ship would certainly sail. So the next morning, Queequeg and I took a very early start. And that concludes Chapter 20 of Moby Dick by Herman Melville. L. Bubbly writes, sunk cost. They didn't call it back back then. They called it Davy Jones's portion. I should have said Davy Jones' share. That sounds way better. If y'all are enjoying this show, just as a reminder, this is a viewer-supported stream. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat, and we are currently 20 away from the next Face Gamer Expansion milestone. Chase Cooper in the YouTube chat says, what's the chapter with the whale discussion? Well, fun fact, I'm not an expert at this book. I don't really read books on stream that I'm an expert at. I read books on stream that I kind of wish I had an excuse to read again, but haven't made time for. So, like, Dracula, the last time I read Dracula was probably like 12, 13 years ago, maybe. And then I started reading it on stream last year because I was like, it's been too long since I read Dracula. And I caught a lot of stuff on this reading that I didn't last time, right? So last time I read Moby Dick was a little while ago, and I wanted to fix that. And this is also a really good book to read while streaming because it's such a cultural touchstone. Like, if it's been made fun of in Animaniacs, the source material is probably worth checking out. For example, I recommend reading Relativity by Albert Einstein. It's actually eminently readable. You wouldn't think so, because everybody's like, oh, it's Einstein. He came up with these brilliant ideas nobody had ever thought of. But one of the things about Einstein that made him so good was that he could come up with these ideas and then explain them in plain language using examples and metaphors that were available to the layperson. If you haven't read Relativity, I recommend it. If you haven't read Dracula, I recommend it. Chase Cooper says, I'm impressed that you can read and play at the same time. Well, the thing is, I read and play at the same time with the chats. Anyway, I've got 3 chats going all the time when I'm reading and mining, right? So this is actually in some ways easier because I determine the rate at which the book moves forward. I actually, by that last chapter, I was kind of getting a start and stop by the end. I was having a hard time keeping track of where I had been on the page as it gets later in the evening. No, I'm good. I'm just messing around. But I definitely was, like, not quite as sure about where had I left off as I jumped around. Welcome, Julia MP. Hope your parliament's going well. Okay, I got more stuff to go put down. Maroni says, man, this book is good. Yeah, I know, right? That's the thing, though, is because it's so old, a lot of people don't give it a shot because they just assume, like, I get the idea of it. But the thing about Moby Dick is you can't really get the idea of it without reading it because it's so weird. It's like a guy looking up stuff on Wikipedia while trying to tell a story about his own life, where he's constantly getting distracted and going on off on tangents. Hey, Burke615, thank you so much for tipping 20, who says, I'm really enjoying your reading, Joe. Thanks. So let's see, that we were at 40. That's going to get us another 20 on the abacus here. I was trying to jostle 20 beads across, but I don't have the touch with the new abacus. So anyway, evenly getting us to our next expansion milestone. So here we go. Expand, Joe. Do. So thank you very much, Burke615. D. Okay, so that puts us 20 from the next one. And then we got another tip rolling in, it looks like. I got the alert, but the full notice hasn't come in. So let's give that a minute while we try it back up here, and then we'll see who that one's from, too. La dun dun, dee doo 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 doo. Dun dun dun. Here it is. We got another 25 rolling in from Alexis. Thank you very much, Alexis. That gets us 5 past our next face camera expansion milestone. Here we go. It's time to expand. And I accidentally hid the note. Alexis writes, thanks for reading, Joe. I've never read Moby Dick, so it's a pleasure to be able to consume it in some way. Have you ever read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein or The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? Both of them are some of my favorite classics. I considered them. I wanted to do something a little bit different since we'd done Dracula right before this. I felt like if we did Dracula and then we went right into Frankenstein, I'd be limiting myself basically forever to like, oh, we're only reading horror or whatever. So there's a few other things kind of on the short list. Frankenstein and Dr. Jekyll are both in there. Jules Verne's Time Machine and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea are on that list. What's the total width that needs to be flattened? The oval is 900 on its long axis and 600 on its short axis. We only really have to flatten the oval. And even that, we're going to have some parts that aren't going to be flattened because they look too cool and the roads kind of naturally kind of pass through them in ways that are cool looking. But, yeah, the whole 1600 by 1600 does not need to be flattened, but that 900 by 600 oval in the middle, yeah, that's where we're going. So the thing is, to some degree, I don't want to commit to reading a particular book next, because what we read next is going to depend on kind of what's in the zeitgeist at the time, right? Because let's say that Disney announces they're doing a new 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea movie. I don't want to do a Disney tie-in, right? I don't want to promote their film, you know? That's not really where my heart is. So that might get bumped down the list, even if it's more culturally relevant. Because the other thing is, in some ways, people are more likely to read that book on their own if Disney came out with a movie for it. And part of what I'm trying to do is encourage people to check out stuff they wouldn't have otherwise, you know? But if something happened that I was really interested in, right, that overlapped what I cared about, then I'd be more likely to bump something up the list. I think we're done reading chapters for the night. I definitely was feeling it toward the end of that last chapter, or actually toward the beginning of that last chapter. We have another tip rolling in for 5 from Gwen. Thank you, Gwen, who says, thanks for keeping me company this evening. Hey, you're most welcome, Gwen. Appreciate it. That puts us 10 away now from the next Face Camera expansion milestone. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. Mr. Hardluck says, howdy, folks. We just got home from helping erect a gazebo and being paid with food. Oh, that sounds fun. I guess one of your family or friends got a new gazebo going in or gone in. That's pretty cool. My big manual labor thing for today was I bought 30 moving boxes and filled up 10 of them. I started packing up a bunch of... my daughter started packing up a bunch of the books in her room, and I started packing up a bunch of board games and books as well. And, so, yeah, Lemon Sages, the face camera gets bigger when people tip. We are $10 away from the next face camera expansion milestone. But yeah, gazebos are fun, and getting paid with food also excellent. But yeah, I'm really excited. So we got 10 boxes stacked up by the door now. And my daughter and I are going to pack some more tomorrow. The goal is to get enough stuff packed up. That, like, we're going to get the winter clothes packed up. Anything that we're not going to need. Because, like, a lot of our board games and stuff, we only really use at conventions. Or at, like, big group board game nights. But those are, like, scheduled months in advance. And we don't have any of those in May. So I was like, okay. So we don't need our board game library. We don't need all of our books. Let's start packing up some of our books. Winter clothes, I think I mentioned, also going to go next. So that way, like, I feel like the more stuff that we have kind of queued up and ready to go, the less stressed out I'm going to be as we approach the moving window. We still don't have approval yet from the new apartment, but the apartment that we want is going to open up on about a week before we have to get out of here. So I should probably get this off my hotbar so I don't accidentally break it. So we're going to have about a week of overlap, but we're not necessarily going to have like a U-Haul rental for a week. I might be able to borrow a truck from a family member or something, like a pickup truck. But pickup trucks these days have such short beds that we wouldn't be able to use the big furniture or move the big furniture in it anyway. We'd have to rent one of those U-Haul crosstown vans for like the big mattress and stuff, or not mattresses, the bed frames and tall bookshelves, stuff that wouldn't fit in the pickup truck. Okay, so let's go. Yeah, I'm still going to be coming to you live from Nashville, Tennessee. Our public school system here is weird, where you have to try to lottery into the best schools. And so I'm fortunate that my daughter got one of those spots, but the school is not easily accessible from where we live now. And I don't want to lose an hour or two a day getting her to and from school. I'd rather have a rough few weeks with this move, but then be able to get to school easier in the morning and afternoon. Can I rent a trailer for the move? Well, part of the problem is I don't have my own vehicle. In theory, though, if I was able to borrow a family member's pickup truck, I could tow it with the pickup truck. But I also don't think I could get a trailer like that into, like, my current apartment or now I think about maybe the new apartment. Backing a trailer in or getting a trailer into places inside of cities isn't always easy. I think I'd be better off renting a U-Haul van than trying to put a trailer on the back of the pickup truck. And also, those U-Haul vans, you can get them for like $70 for one day if you bring them back and if you're not getting a lot of mileage on them. If you bring them back same day and to the same place you got it and you don't put a lot of mileage on it, they can be pretty affordable. So even if the trailer was half the price, the difficulties of parking and moving the trailer would be too expensive in terms of time and convenience to be worth it. I'd rather just... yeah, if I figure if I can borrow the pickup truck for like a week and just move all the small stuff over the course of that week, one day, rent the van and coordinate with some friends to help me move the big furniture, I feel like we could do it. Yeah, U-Haul prices are going to vary geographically. Around here, renting a U-Haul van for about a day with about the amount of mileage I'd be looking at would be about $70. It, like, starts at $20, but there's enough add-ons and stuff. Yeah, moving apartments can be stressful. That's why we're trying to get ahead of it. Oops. I wanted to put that in my offhand. Yeah, so got the first 10 boxes stacked up by the door. Because that's the other thing is, like, the more stuff that we can stage in advance, the quicker everything will go when we actually start moving and get the keys. Like, just getting a bunch of stuff out of the first apartment immediately will be nice. Okay. And it'll give us more room to maneuver with getting the bigger stuff out, too. Bum, 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 bada, bada, bum, 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 bada. I feel like we're going to want to trident over here real quick. Okay. But yeah, one thought I had too is that if we can get all the stuff on like bookshelves, like board games and books and stuff, packed up early, we can move those shelves early, and then we can start unloading things onto those shelves early. Like, the quicker we can start getting stuff where it needs to go, the more room we're going to have to maneuver and get other stuff in and around. Yeah, well, hey, Relic, yeah, we just read 4 chapters of Moby Dick, I think. What was it? Was it 3? We read 17, 18, 19, and 20. Yeah, we read 4 chapters of Moby Dick. So no, that stream title is not there to punk you or whatever. That's actually what we were doing. We're done with Moby Dick for the night, though. I found by chapter 4, I was kind of hitting my limit. Yeah. So because the place we're renting has a garage that I'm going to be using as a studio, I don't think we're going to necessarily get a hand truck. I think we're going to just kind of pull the pickup truck up to the garage and just unload everything into the garage. And then move stuff from there bit by bit. But yeah, because we're only moving across town, and we've got a week of overlap or so between both leases, which is not cheap paying an extra rent for 1 week. Just as a reminder, tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. I'm hoping that everything can go pretty smoothly. There's going to be stuff where it's like, oh, whoops, we haven't moved this yet, or oh, we already moved this and we still need it at the old place, but I'm optimistic. I'd really like to kind of get ahead of stuff as much as I can. Have a good night, Hercine Gold. I figure we'll at least wear down this pick so that we can get one solid full time lapse in here. Oh, yeah, this is out of range of the... Yeah, that's why I keep coming back out. I was like... Okay. Okay. So if I'm here, is that high enough to clear that out? Yeah. Oh yeah, the coal is going to take a second. And that'll fix our pickaxe a little. Welcome, Exploding Emeralds Live, who's raiding with a party of 2. Hope you're having a fantastic time. Welcome, Preston CG Minecraft. We just got done reading 4 chapters of Moby Dick by Herman Melville, and we are continuing to work on cleaning up this area here. You know what? I should probably replace the Moby Dick link in the top with the What We're Building link here, which is, if you're curious about what we're working on, we are terraforming a very large space. We've got an oval, which you can see on that map I've linked, that's in Minecraft, 600 blocks on the narrow side and 900 blocks on the long side. And we are in the process of basically flattening out the space inside that oval, or at least the space for the roads. So there's one of those roads now, and it's going to stretch all the way out there. But it needs to cut through this mountain. Both parts of the belt road need to cut through this mountain, as well as this interconnect road, and a second interconnect road. Basically, this must go. If I switch over here, I actually just been experimenting. Another thing that some of y'all might not have seen on my, if you only come to the weekend streams, is I've been experimenting with rockets and camera angles. So now my rockets will show up in frame with my new flight mode camera angle. So you can kind of see the oval that we're working on around here as well. Whoops. The building in the center of the oval on that map is going to go there. There's the lagoon, which you can see on the map as well. Yeah, different camera angle. Also, let me check real quick. It looks like we had another tip rolling in for 10 from Elton. Thank you very much, Elton, who says, good luck with the move, Joe. I'm currently packing for my own. Wishing you all the best. Elton, I know moving is expensive. Thank you so much for sharing and sparing a little cash for me during such a challenging time for you as well, I'm sure. That is going to get us evenly to our next face camera expansion milestone. So please direct your attention down here to the lower left. Y'all have seen that money go straight to my head with each face camera expansion milestone we hit. But now, like Jacob Marley, these chains I forged in life are about to begin pulling us down to the deep below. Where's the camera? Oh no. Hold on. Enter the Jost. Boom, 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 boom. And we are going to lower the Joe pasty now to 90%. At this point, each additional face camera expansion milestone will be accompanied by a corresponding drop in Joe opacity. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. Thank you again to Elton for that. Okay. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. Elton the Skeleton says, no problem, Joe. Thank you. So yeah, anyway, this new mode lets me showcase the different rocket patterns. This is a pretty straightforward rocket pattern. But yeah, I really like this. I feel like just... The problem is, when you're flying in first person, this is the angle that I have to go that speed, and you can't see the ground at all. But if I show the ground, I start flying directly at the ground, right? Whereas from this camera angle, because I've got an offset, I can have an angle where I'm slightly stalling going up, so you get a good view without me slamming into the ground, right? I'm really happy with how that turned out. I spent a lot of my Friday afternoon on this, and I'm not joking when I say I'm very proud of how it turned out. Stuff like that in the long term really makes a big difference for the stream. Being able to slowly fly over stuff and share it with y'all, because you know what we do here is about showing what we do, not just doing it, you know. Presentation is part of the construction here. It looks a lot better than first person mode. I feel like that creates opportunities we weren't having otherwise. Oh, so normally I do use a lot of those fireworks that Cub makes, the expensive ones. But right now, because we're like, the problem with those is they don't stack neatly. They're all like different unique things. And since we need a bunch of our inventory free for, what do you call it? Since we need a bunch of our inventory free for gathering these blocks as we go, I'm sticking with the simpler fireworks. But they're still nice. Bum, 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 bum. Granite goes in this one. Cobble over here. Also more cobble. Whoops. Whatever, that can go there. Christoph says it would have been funny to do some off-camera mining and clear the whole area. Honestly, anytime I'm on a phone call now, I'm over here mining. I'm constantly over here mining. So there's a lot of off-camera mining happening too, but there's too much. There's too much to do only off-camera. Also, I worry if I only did it off-camera, y'all wouldn't believe I actually did this. Whereas, like, if I'm doing about half of it on camera and half of it off-camera while I'm on the phone and stuff, then I feel like it's a good compromise. There's a lot of terraforming left to do besides just removing the mountains in the way of these roads. I am excited to have my own fireworks set. Cub worked really hard on kind of brainstorming and messing around with those. I don't know if Cub Fan's anywhere near a bed. But I don't want to waste the trip back down when I don't have a full inventory. Okay. Should probably actually go to bed, though. We're going to start getting creepered. Yep, hearing monsters. Don't follow me into the water. Yay, trident. Actually, this is about... Yeah, I think we're actually ready. I'm putting another replay mod marker in. I think we're about ready to go fix our stuff. Yep, so let's go ahead and do last call for tips. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight. We're going to repair our tools and then wrap up the stream in about 5 minutes. By my abacus, we are 20 away from our next face camera expansion milestone. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. Why did I pick this area to build in? Because it's the closest thing to spawn where I could get this much space. It was not my first choice of location, but it was the choice that was available to me. By the time the season is over, my area is going to end up being surrounded by a bunch of other Hermit's builds, probably. It seems like it's kind of far out now, but it's actually really close to spawn on the whole. Like, compared to how late game usually goes. Hey, Esther the Wolf. Yeah, we've already done last call for tips, so we're winding down. We read 4 chapters of Moby Dick. That'll be available on the VOD because I didn't make the mistake of starting the video with copyrighted music. Gonna turn, speaking of noises though, we're gonna turn down the hostile creature sounds here. Bum 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 bum. Gonna put some of these in our offhand. Everything that needs to be fixed, we're putting in the hotbar. Making sure we have no extra spaces because we don't want to pick up 8,000 ender pearls. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Actually remembered my sword this time. That's nice. A rare treat for everyone. Okay, while we collect those, I'm going to pull this up. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum bum bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum bum bum. Okay. So we're going to swap that out there. Swap over to this. Finish fixing that. Anyone else have any last minute questions, thoughts, or concerns about Moby Dick's chapters 17 through 20? While we wait for the experience to roll in here. Boy. Okay, so we are going to swap that one out there. 2. How am I liking the book so far? Pretty good. I've read it once. This is my second time through. I'm enjoying it more this time. I find reading books out loud really forces me to think about the characters' voices a lot more. I hope that that's coming through. Julia MP says, I missed the reading. What happened in those chapters briefly? The big thing was that Queequeg signed on the Pequod as a harpooner. And Ishmael and Queequeg were warned by another sailor that the ship was cursed, basically. And then they also hung out on the ship while the ship was provisioned to like see how everything was going, but they didn't get to meet the captain. Tommy Guns says, I've been listening to 1984 lately. Oh yeah, by George Orwell. That's a pretty good one. Classic. Does it bother you that Big Brother used to only claim he invented helicopters, but now he claims he invented airplanes too? No, why would it? Okay, just checking. So here we go. Heading up to there and boom. Okay. So let's go get one last look at our progress here. And then we will wrap up the stream. It looks like one of my pals from the old Mixer days, Duke, the piano player, is currently live on Twitch. I've hung out with Duke at a few play-on-cons, always a fun time. Very talented piano player. Very, very chill piano music he usually performs. One of his albums was like what my daughter listened to falling asleep every night for like years when she was like a toddler. But yeah, let me... Okay, yeah. Need to mute his stream before we raid him. But when we get over there, our raid message is, howdy y'all, Joe Hill's raid here. But yeah, he does a lot of his own custom music. And then anything else I need to do? Do I need to thank anybody else? Looks like we got everybody thanked appropriately for their tips. Appreciate y'all supporting the show. Am I using the Joe Hill's fireworks? Not yet. Cub Fan hasn't mass produced them yet. He just gave me the demo. I don't have like a big box of them or anything yet. But yeah, what else we got? What else? Oh, I'm out of food. Should probably be ending the stream standing next to the berries, actually, if anything. But yeah. Shark Ranger says, what does a TSD in your name mean? It means Team Snow Day. It's a D&D 5e and comics writing. Well, no, it wasn't 5e. It was Open Gaming License 3.5 Deviant we wrote called Pitfalls and Penguins. Back when 4th edition came out, and it wasn't great for improv comedy the way some people were hoping. We tried to make a funnier D&D. And that was around the time that I was launching my YouTube channel. So anyway, until next time, y'all, this is Joe Hills from Nashville, Tennessee. Keep adventuring. Stop streaming.